Okay, everybody, this is Emar Silver too. Welcome to another edition of the Gridiron Blitz. We're going to preview week 3 of the NFL season while recapping the first 2 weeks as well as we make our predictions and give our thoughts. As always, if you want to follow everything that we do, head to the mothership, the sportsinquirer.net, premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. You can go to our social media pages on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under Sports Inquirer. And finally, go to our audio and video host such as YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and others. And do a search for us under the Sports Inquirer, and you'll be able to find everything that we have going on. Well, we're off to a very slow start with our picks. I'll be honest with you. We had week 1, we were 6-9-1, which is okay. Not for a first week, not bad. You're starting to figure out the season and get the flow going and try to see what you have going on. Week 2 last week though was rough. 3-13-0. I don't know if I've ever gone that bad in a week. And I think when I go over some of these numbers, you'll see why. Well, one, my predictions aren't always the best. It's when we predict in sports, you're not going to get everything right. But the first 2 weeks of the year, first of all, 24 teams have at least one win through the first 2 weeks of the season. Even when we were doing our preview, and I've mentioned, and you notice as well, there's some really good teams that we expect to have solid seasons. Tampa is one of them, San Francisco. Those teams are 2-0, and not a surprise. But then you have some really bad teams like the Jets, the Giants, probably Jacksonville, teams that are going to be really low on the win and loss records. But there's a lot of in between. And there's 24 teams with at least one win through the first 2 weeks. So it's very hard to predict who is going to win these contests. And 25 of those teams have at least one win, as I mentioned. Yeah, so that's second most, trailing only the 2012 season. 11 contests last week were within one possession in the fourth quarter, and 7 of those games were decided by 3 or fewer points. So if I got a few breaks here and there with some of those contests, maybe not 13-3, but 3-13-0 probably would not have been my result. Also had some comebacks in last week's contest of at least 10 points. Arizona was down 13 to Minnesota, was able to win that contest. Baltimore, was down 11 to Kansas City and won that contest 36-35. Tennessee was down 15 points, 14 points in the fourth quarter at Seattle, and were able to emerge with a victory in overtime. So that's just a lot of these contests. They're close, but you also have some big comebacks. I think things are going to even out a little bit more as we get towards weeks 4, 5, and 6. But right now, we're just seeing these teams trying to figure out what they have going on. And I think a big factor, too, is the preseason was not played by as many teams as it should have been as far as starters go. So these guys are still working their way into game shape and working their way into playing full contest. And it's just very hard to predict what you're going to see through the first few weeks of a regular season. Good news though for week 3, I'm 1-0. I picked Carolina minus 7.5 against Houston. Yeah, that was not a surprise. I mean, I picked that. That was pretty easy. When Tyrod Taylor was out or ruled out for the contest for Houston, and you're starting Davis Mills, I can't pick Houston in that regard. And Carolina 3-0 on the season. And granted, they played the murderer's row of the Jets, the Saints, and the Texans. Maybe the Saints are a playoff team. Jacksonville's not going. Houston's going to be very bad this season. Same thing with the Jets. So it's not like they're beating big time teams, but 3-0 is 3-0. Sam Darnold more than 300 yards passing in that contest. So you have a lot of positives for Carolina in that victory. Houston with Deshaun Watson, play him or don't play. Like, this is what you need to decide. And the thing is, the league is not helping their cause as far as suspending him, or not suspension, but at least putting him on the commissioner's exempt list where he gets paid, but he's not active on the roster. He's active on the roster for Houston, and he's not injured, and they are purposely sitting him out. If I'm Houston, either trade him, lower that trading price, or play him. And then if he decides to not play and does a I'm gonna not hold out, but walk out and not report the practice and not report the contest, then you can fine him and do some other things and call his bluff. But right now, Watson is sitting pretty right now. He doesn't get hurt. He gets his paychecks and he's just making it worse and worse for Houston. I don't know. I don't see a way how he could just sit there and not play on his side of things. I know he even before the allegations came out of the sexual assaults, he was unhappy with the organization and was demanding a trade and not reporting the things as far as team activities. But if I'm Houston, I cannot roll out Davis Mills as my backup quarterback. Even Tyrod Taylor, solid pro, but he's not on the level of Deshaun Watson. You can't have arguably a top 5 NFL quarterback just sitting on your roster. And if you activate him and play him, and then the league comes in and puts him on the exempt list, okay, that's on the league. You can't do anything about that. But just to not even dress him and he's a healthy scratch, that makes absolutely zero sense. And you look at the crowd at Houston in that contest. If there were 30,000 people there, I'd been shocked. I mean, it looked really, really bad. So that's a mess of a franchise right now. But Carolina got that victory, and I said they're still undefeated on the season, so they're on a very good roll. And Arizona is a 7.5 point favorite at Jacksonville. I'm gonna take Cardinals to win this contest pretty handily. Now, Jacksonville's gonna get a win or two this year. They'll granted they've lost to Houston the season opener by a pretty good margin, but they'll get Houston at home. They'll might get Indianapolis. They'll get a win or two. But I like Trevor Lawrence. I didn't like Urban Meyer being in Jacksonville. It's just not a good personality fit he's not a good personality fit for the NFL. The way he approaches things, we saw issues with the strength and conditioning coach, didn't vet him properly. The Tim Tebow preseason fiasco. I think and he's a tremendous coach, college coach. He's an all timer without question. But I just think in the NFL, the way he operates is not a good situation. Arizona continues their undefeated ways. I think Kyler Murray, 400 yards passing, 3 touchdowns in that victory over Minnesota last week. I think the Cardinals roll. The 7.5 points is a lot of points to ask for on the road, but I just have no confidence in Jacksonville putting it together. Watch the Jaguars win this by double digits, the way my picks are going. Tennessee's a 5.5 point favorite at home against Indianapolis. I'm going to take the Titans to win this contest by a touchdown. Derrick Henry got things rolling last week, 237 scrimmage yards and 3 rushing TDs in that Seattle victory. Julio Jones, 128 receiving yards in that win as well. So when you get that combination of Henry and Julio Jones, and I still think Tennessee, maybe not the best offense in the NFL, but they could be in top 5. And I think that at Indianapolis, a team that I had playoff hopes for, and it's still only in week 3 of the season, but their defense is not the same. You have the continued injuries of Carson Wentz. We're recording this on September 26th, day of the games. He may play, he may not play, but just he sprained ankles. Who sprains 2 ankles in a contest? It's just something's always not right with him, and I think Tennessee wins that pretty handily. Detroit's a 7.5 point underdog at Baltimore. I think the Ravens win this contest, but they don't cover. I think that a win over Kansas City last week was very cathartic for the Ravens. Lamar Jackson maybe had the game of his career winning that contest. And now they have to go to Detroit. That game's at the Lions. Go to Detroit. I think the letdown factor is real. I still think Baltimore can win this contest, but Detroit, we saw them fight against San Francisco. They were competitive for 2.5 quarters against Green Bay on Monday Night Football last week. I think Detroit can keep this close. Baltimore ultimately wins, but I think the Lions make it competitive. Buffalo is a 7 point favorite at home over Washington. I take Buffalo to win this contest by more than a touchdown. Buffalo's not only my AFC pick, but my Super Bowl champion. And they showed that in that shutout against Miami. And I think they continue the positive vibes and keep things rolling against a Washington team that had a good win on Thursday night football, or last Thursday night against the Giants. But I think ultimately Buffalo's the better team. They're at home. You win by more than a touchdown if that's the case, or you should. This is an interesting contest. New England is a 3-point favorite at home over New Orleans. I'm taking New England minus the 3, but I think it's a low scoring affair. I think New England, they have to trust Mac Jones more. I know that they want to play solid defense, run the ball, good time of possession, but you can only throw so many 5 or 7 yard routes. You have to go throw the ball vertical and go deep. Now, I don't know if they have the deep threats to really take advantage of that as far as New England goes, but you got to take the training wheels off. You chose him over Cam Newton. He's your starting quarterback. He's the guy that you want to leave the franchise. You got to be a little bit more aggressive on the offensive end. New Orleans Jekyll and Hyde team so far this year. Big High winning in week 1 over Green Bay. Jameis Winston to 5 TD passes. Week 2, really disappointing performance against Carolina. They're on the road again for a third week in a row. Remember, week 1 against Green Bay was supposed to be in New Orleans, but it was in Jacksonville because of they're recovering from Hurricane Ida. New Orleans is on the road again for a third straight week. So this is a test of attrition for them. And I think New England ultimately wins this contest by more than the 3 points. But if New Orleans comes in and wins, would not be surprising. Kansas City is a 6.5-point favorite at home against the Los Angeles Chargers. Man, I really want to take the Chargers in this contest. Justin Herbert threw for 338 yards in that loss last week at home against Dallas. Kansas City, we saw them lose last week against Baltimore. If there's a hangover for Baltimore in the win, you figured it'd be the same deal with Kansas City in a loss. And the Chargers come in a very hungry team, a team that some are saying can compete for the division. I think Kansas City wins this contest by more than a 6.5 and keeps a good lead in that division. Cleveland's a 7.5-point favorite at home against Chicago. I think Justin Fields, the new quarterback for the Bears, gives their offense a little more energy, a little more diversity, able to extend plays. I think the Cleveland wins this contest, but doesn't cover. I think Chicago can keep this close within that 7.5, and the Browns win, but Chicago makes it interesting and keeps it close. Pittsburgh is a 3-point favorite at home over Cincinnati. Steelers are the better team. I know TJ Watt is out for this contest and probably for a week or two more. Look, he didn't do a training camp. He had a tremendous first week against Buffalo, 2 sacks in the Steelers' victory. But if you have no training camp, you're not in condition. I'm not saying he's fat and lazy, but the playing conditions he's not as optimum level right now. And then he pulls the hamstring. That's not surprising. And that's going to be a lingering injury for him, definitely in the next few weeks, maybe throughout the entire season. But still, with all of that, I think the Steelers win this contest. They're the better team than Cincinnati overall, and they find a way, the Steelers, to win this contest. The Giants are a 3-point favorite at home against Atlanta. Good luck. I'm glad I don't bet real money on these contests because I would have no idea who to pick in this game. I would avoid this game. I mean, who do you choose? Atlanta has looked uninspired their first 2 weeks of the season, especially on the defensive end. Matt Ryan had 300 yards in that loss, throwing in that loss to Tampa. He has the most passing yards for any quarterback through the first 14 seasons of his career, surpassing Drew Brees. So the offense, the Falcons could have put up some points when they get some good line protection, but defensively, they bring nothing to the table. They may be the league's worst defense, giving up 50-plus points against Tampa last week, gave up 30-plus against Philadelphia at home in the week season opener. Not a good team on the defensive end. But what about the Giants? Bad loss to open the season at home against Denver. Played actually pretty well by their standards against Washington. Had a game winner. The Washington kicker missed the field goal. Dexter Lawrence offsides. end up getting a re-kick, winning the game. But I'm taking Atlanta plus the 3. I think Atlanta has a slightly better team. It's in New York. I don't expect this game. I would not be mad if losing this one as far as my picks. I have no idea where to go with that. The Raiders are a 3.5 point favorite at home against Miami. Derek Carr, probably the early season MVP if you do that after 2 weeks. 382 passing yards and 2 touchdowns in the Raiders win at Pittsburgh last week. Had 435 yards in that week 1 victory over Baltimore. So right now he's thrown for 375 yards at least and 2 touchdowns in the first 2 games of a season. Only other guys to do that are Drew Bledsoe, Tom Brady, Ryan Fitzpatrick back in 2018, and Patrick Mahomes in 2019. So the Raiders are coming in with a lot of confidence. Tua is out, injured reserve for the Dolphins, with the cracked ribs. He's another guy. He's kind of getting like Carson Wentz. It seems like there's always an injury, something that dings him. But he's on injury reserve, so he's not going to play the next few weeks. So the Miami's in not a good place right now, and that's a playoff pick for me. So I'm not too happy about that as far as my predictions go. But I think that the Raiders win this contest and keep things rolling. Denver's a 10.5 point favorite at home against the Jets. Denver wins the contest, but I don't know if they're 10.5 points better than the Jets. I mean, Denver has a good team, solid offense, but 10.5 points, that's a blowout loss in the NFL. I don't know if they have that capability in their offensive arsenal. But then how are the Jets going to score? That's a fair question to ask as well. I'm going to say it's a low scoring affair. Denver wins, but they do not cover. So give me the New York Jets plus the 10.5. Rams are a 1.5 point underdog at home against Tampa. I'm gonna take the Rams to not only cover, well, not only win this, not only not, Tampa does not cover this contest, but the Rams win it outright, and that may be the upset pick of the day. But I think that the Rams are coming in with a lot of confidence themselves. I think Matthew Stafford has had a very good start to his career, or his starts to the first 2 games of the season. And Tom Brady, I know he threw 5 touchdown passes, and 2 of them with the Gronkowski in that win over the Falcons last week. Oh, by the way, the Falcons did not give up 50 plus points. They only gave up 48 points. So they did not give 50 plus points. Got to be accurate. But still, I think that the Rams, they're not the better team than Tampa, but I think that being at home, this is a good moment for them. I think that the Rams win this contest outright. Minnesota is a 2.5 point underdog at home against Seattle. Give me the Vikings to win this contest. They're a better team than 0-2, which is what they are right now. Remember, they lost at Cincinnati to open the season. They lost last week as well. I think that they find a way to get a victory and win this contest. San Francisco is a 3 point favorite at home over Green Bay. I'm going to take the 49ers to win this contest. I think they need to just stick with Garoppolo right now, and they did that last week in their win over Philadelphia. Trey Lance is the future. He's going to be a tremendous performer for them. But right now, Garoppolo is the main man for them as far as playing. And Green Bay is a really good team as well. They're my NFC representative in the Super Bowl. We saw Aaron Rodgers do Aaron Rodgers things in week 2 at home against Detroit. But San Francisco, I think, brings a lot of physicality on both lines of scrimmage. And I think that ultimately gets them the victory. Dallas is a 3.5 point favorite at home over Philadelphia. The Cowboys ran the ball last week. And I don't care if it's Tony Pollard or Ezekiel Elliott. I think they care. They'd rather have Ezekiel Elliott be the main runner for them, just based on salary and reputation and trying to get him going this season, even though Pollard has been out rushing him as far as yardage and yards per run. But still, however you get the yards, you need to get them. They rushed for 180 yards in that win over the Chargers last week. That's a very good sign. Look, we all know about Dak Prescott making the most money this year in the NFL and his big salary and everything like that coming back. But you got to remember also, coming off of that ankle injury, had shoulder soreness throughout preseason. Run the ball, have more balance. Look, CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper are nice weapons on the outside, and they'll have their chances to get going. But run the ball, have some balance, and that's how you're going to be put yourself in a better position to win these contests. So Philadelphia, they're another. You see, first week of the season they beat Atlanta pretty handily. I think that the Falcons are in for a long season, so that's not going to be a big bucket of pride for them to have beaten the Falcons. Last week, losing at home to San Francisco. San Francisco is a playoff team for me. That's a solid squad as well. So how do you gauge Philadelphia? I don't. I think that they're a division contender, but I don't think that they are better than Dallas at this stage of the season. So I'm going to take Dallas with the -3.5. And those are our predictions for week 3 of the NFL season. Thanks for listening to our show and watching it. As always, follow everything that we do at the mothership, the sportsinquirer.net. You can also go to our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And finally, go to our audio and video hosts, such as YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever you get your content. Until next time, good fight, good night, be safe.